Everyone. Welcome to another episode of Culture Mavens. I'm Rabbi Susan Nanus with my dear friend Tom Teicholz. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Susan. I can't believe we've been doing this, throughout the pandemic, and now it's the end of the year. And I believe this is our last Culture Mavens of 2020, a year we're both glad to close the book on.
So glad, so glad.
You've got a bunch of stuff you want to tell us about that's opening between now and the end of the year. What are you excited about?
Wonder Woman 1984, which is on HBO Max. And Gal Gadot, our Israeli woman icon. Wonder Woman, which I don't know about you, but I loved the first one. I really enjoyed it.
Directed by Patty Jenkins. It should be really great.
It should be great. And then I was surprised to find that Robert Benigni, from Life is Beautiful, he did a live action Pinocchio, which I guess is for families. And, I like these kind of stories. And that will be on Apple TV Plus.
And it's a passion project for him, actually. He's been wanting to do it for years. So hopefully it'll be great. A lot of it'll be, his kind of physical humor.
And then there's a new film starring Tom Hanks that I just read about called News of the World. Tom Hanks plays a Civil War captain, and he goes from town to town, and he basically is like a radio news broadcast. He tells people the news of what's going on. He shares the news of presidents and queens, glorious feuds, devastating catastrophes, and gripping adventures from the far reaches of the globe. So he's a storyteller. It looks great. And of course, there's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That's on Netflix.
And that's Chadwick Boseman's last movie.
Exactly. Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman. If you like Jane Austen, there's a new movie called Modern Persuasion. Persuasion is one of Jane Austen's novels. That's also on Apple TV Plus. And then there's The Prom, which I saw on Broadway, and it's on Netflix with Meryl Streep. And personally, I did not like it at all. I think it's way over the top, really mugging and corny, but apparently people are loving it.
It's been getting awful reviews, but I guess maybe it's so bad it's good. I don't know.
Some people really like it. It's about some egotistical actors who go to a small town in Indiana where a girl who's a lesbian is not allowed to take her girlfriend to the prom. And so they decide to interfere. But it's very big and it's got big stars. And then finally, you and I were going to talk for a minute about about Herman Mankiewicz. This is on Netflix. Why don't you talk a little about that?
This is a passion project for David Fincher. David Fincher is the director of The Social Network and of Seven and of a lot of movies where he's known for his meticulous production. And it's based on a script that Fincher's father wrote, and it tells the story of Herman Mankiewicz, who was a very successful Hollywood screenwriter in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and who was the author of the screenplay for Citizen Kane. Because it takes place in that time, the studio executive that he works with a good deal is Irving Thalberg. And Thalberg was a Wilshire Boulevard Temple congregant, and he died at the very young age of 36. And his funeral was held at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. If all of you have your coffee table book, there's a picture from that funeral, actually. And Thalberg is the one who donated the Oculus, where the Shema is written.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he donated that. So there's a scene in the movie that takes place at Wilshire, and there's a shot, and it says Congregation B'nai B'rith, which is historically accurate because the temple was originally Congregation B'nai B'rith, and they only changed the name to Wilshire Boulevard Temple in 1937. And Thalberg died in 36. So that's historically accurate. Anyhow,
also,
the movie is not that good. Well, Gary Oldman does not seem very Jewish to me.
Right.
And
I wanted to say that Samuel Goldwyn is also in the film, and he was president of the synagogue of Wilshire Boulevard Temple when it was actually opened in 1929. He was the president of the temple as well. And nobody in Hollywood is portrayed in a very likable manner at all. And as you said, it wasn't very good, but you sort of have to have seen Citizen Kane in order to understand that this movie is in the style of Citizen Kane, even up to the point of being in black and white. I actually wanted to watch it afterwards. I didn't get to yet, but you're right. It wasn't very good. It was too talky, right?
It didn't really build to anything. The drama in it revolves around a guy who didn't put his name on screenplays, finally wants his name on a screenplay. That wasn't really an issue that I cared about, or I think others will care about. But enough about Mank. Let me tell you about some really interesting independent movies that you can watch online. The Laemmle Theaters created a Laemmle virtual cinema. You can join and see documentaries and independent movies that you're not going to see on the streaming services. I saw a very interesting Russian film called Beanpole that is a film about women that takes place at the end of World War II in Leningrad, and two women who were Russian army combatants and are suffering from various forms of PTSD. And it's not at all like an American movie would play out. And it's very interesting. Another movie that I had wanted to see is a movie called The Hero with Sam Elliott. And it's really about him and about something that happens in his life. And it's a great performance and a great little gem of a movie. And, you know, in some ways, 2020 for me was a time when I got back into ballet again.
Right.
And watching ballet. There's a performance that's being streamed called A Night at the Ballet. And Melanie Hamrick, who is a former ABT ballerina, produced this. And it's these pas de deux done socially distant, but beautifully filmed. And it's wonderful to see. I also want to recommend a book that I read by David Halberg. It's his memoir. David Halberg is an American dancer who was the first American to be a principal dancer with the Bolshoi Ballet. He had in 2015 a terrible foot injury that sidelined him for about 2 years. And he just recently announced that he's going to become the artistic director of the Australian National Ballet. And so his memoir of his career and his injury and how he came back, his book really gives great sort of behind the scenes on all the famous ballets that I've watched this year.
Speaking of ballet, and I've mentioned this over the weeks, there are multiple performances of the Nutcracker available from the Moscow Ballet, the American Ballet Theater, the Balanchine. And that used to be a tradition. My daughter and I would go and see the Nutcracker. I just want to add, because I'm a huge, Jane Austen and historical drama fan, there's a new series on Netflix coming out called Bridgerton. And it's based on a Regency England romance novel. And it's produced by Shonda Rhimes, who we know from Grey's Anatomy. Is that
Grey's Anatomy. So yeah. If you like the soap opera of Grey's Anatomy, just imagine it done Jane Austen style with the most diverse cast
right
you can imagine in that kind of clothing and setting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Also, the narrator of the series is a gossip columnist of the era, and the voiceover is Julie Andrews.
Yeah, so, and it's Shonda Rhimes made a giant deal with Netflix, and this is her first project for them. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
I am too. So basically what we're saying is we have to all stay inside right now, which has become really hard. Tom and I have been talking about how we're really losing steam after 10 months. But we hope some of these recommendations will get you through as we hang in there and wait for our turn to get the vaccine.
And there's going to be a lot of virtual New Year's Eve concerts. I'm a big fan of New Orleans music. Tipitina's, a famous bar down there, is having a virtual New Year's Eve, and the local great radio station, WWOZ, is having a New Year's Eve weekend extravaganza from their best performances from people like Dr. John and Fats Domino. There are ways for us to enjoy this time, even if it's not a enjoyable time in our history. Let's put it that way.
So we want to wish you everyone a happy new year, and we're looking forward to a better 2021 for all of us.
With more and more culture that we're all going to enjoy and talk about in 2021. And thank you, Susan. It's been such fun talking to you every week and doing this. So it's been a real pleasure to do this with you this year.
Well, it's been my pleasure too, and I hope it's everybody out there's pleasure as well. So Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye.